name is Hyunjhee Kim, and I am a Korean-American multimedia artist, mostly working with performance, video, and various new media tools. Thematically, I research on critiquing popular culture, technology, art, and all around very much interested in using consumer technology in my work. So the piece in the back, it's called New Order of Being, NOOB for short, and a lot of the initial research went into from looking at headlines. It was actually triggered by going to a talk that Anderson Cooper gave on how social media platforms leverage on dopamine levels and how that triggers parts of our brain to really embrace and get addicted to the platforms that we are on every day. And so a lot of the initial research was a little bit complicated because I had to filter through a lot of articles that were talking about how being on social media is like getting a warm hug. It has that kind of trigger effect, and digging deeper and figuring out how neuroscientists use specific language to describe that to people like me who have no actual professional knowledge into the field was the most difficult part, but also the most exciting and intriguing because I was able to really mess up the language that they're using and recycle it and remix it. The reason why I think I got into using consumer-grade technology comes from mostly from a video art background, and for me it was so fascinating and to be able to connect all of my work online. And I initially would put a lot of videos on YouTube and Vimeo and share it, and the amount of different comments that I get, those who aren't necessarily interested in the arts or artists, how they would see my work as being art or non-art really interested me. And so that whole conversation that technology allows us to have really intrigued me to get more into it and further investigate what it means to use technology and talk about it. I think what I see a lot is the pattern in how these social media platforms operate and architecturally are designed to make us more wanted and be seen and famous. And I think having that kind of awareness and knowing that there are all these infrastructures and ecologies that are surrounded is a trigger point for us. And so I think for me it's looking at things that are given to us, such as technology that's so much around, like especially consumer technology, like our devices, cell phones, computers, and being aware of how that affects us emotionally. And rather than it being about that those structures need to change because they will continue to evolve whether or not this piece exists, it's more about bringing our attention back to those capabilities. And I think as social media users, it's always a good practice to second guess what you see and make sure that you're aware. In my other social media presence, I do these site-specific pieces that are based on and based for the social media users. And in those projects, I try to subvert a lot of the expectations and the things that you would see as being truths. So reconstructing and recontextualizing the language we use in other disciplines and areas, I tried to put into incorporating these type of movements and dance gestures that go into it. And so for me, I always think about how dystopia is extremely sad, but then utopia is also extremely creepy. And so that's I think my sentiment towards social media overall. To be in a more historic and archaic location, talking about social media or dopamine levels and things that are technologically crazy outside of the world, it's interesting for it to be located in such a charged location. And I think it does sort of change the context of the work. But in a way, I feel like I'm bringing back the reality into a space that is so removed from outside influence. So part of the larger project that I'm working on in the Faux Virtual organization, Seika Human Interaction Labs, We are interested in looking at how artificial intelligence and companion robots could change the course of our dynamics with each other every day. And I believe's a strong word. I think that social media and all the information that we're voluntarily posting will possibly be used to feed into those companion robots that we may interact with in 2045 or further on. And you know, maybe I'm 80 years old sitting in my home with my friend robot. That robot will start like bringing in all of those information, like memories that I don't have, but I posted and talked about, status updates that I voluntarily uploaded and posted, might be recycled by those new entities, whether virtual or physically, providing companionship. And so I feel like that's way more than 5 years, but I do feel like all the information that we're feeding into social media will affect a lot of how we interact with, not with only with each other, but with our own selves.